You've just disembarked from your vessel. The euphoria from your cruise experience is still running through your veins. You believe the challenging portion is behind you. Incorrect. The events that follow might drain hundreds, potentially thousands from your bank account, and cruise companies are relying on your ignorance of these concealed pitfalls. I'm discussing 10 post-voyage hazards that could completely destroy your vacation aftermath. From puzzling credit card bills that surface weeks afterward to automatic subscription renewals that will empty your checking account each month, these represent more than simple annoyances. These are financial explosives ready to detonate. Here's the information the cruise business wants to keep from you. Your obligations don't conclude when you descend that gangplank. Some of the most expensive errors occur within the initial 48 hours after returning home. I've witnessed travelers forfeit their complete cruise reimbursement due to their lack of awareness about these post-voyage traps. However, each catastrophe can be entirely avoided if you understand what to watch for. Prepared to travel more intelligently and maintain your money in your possession? Let's begin. Danger 1. Unauthorized credit card charges. Consider this scenario. Sarah from Michigan returns home from her Caribbean voyage, removes items from her luggage, and resumes her regular routine. 21 days later, she's examining her credit card bill and nearly spits out her morning beverage. A $347 fee from the cruise company appears that she absolutely didn't approve. Throughout her voyage, Sarah utilized her room key card for purchasing beverages and keepsakes, identical to millions of fellow travelers. However, within that complex web of shipboard purchases, either her card received charges for another person's spa treatment or a staff member committed an innocent error that became Sarah's costly dilemma. Cruise companies are depending on you missing these mistakes. They understand most individuals don't examine their bills immediately, particularly when dealing with post-vacation depression and work catch-up. When you finally spot that puzzling charge, you're frequently beyond the dispute time frame, and suddenly that mistake becomes your permanent contribution to the cruise company's profits. But here's the twist. Unapproved charges aren't the most severe issue. I've witnessed situations where travelers' credit cards were compromised during shipboard purchases, resulting in fraud that remained hidden for months. One Texas family didn't discover their card details had been stolen until charges from unknown businesses across 3 nations began appearing. Your response? Examine each credit card bill within 48 hours of returning home. Don't merely glance at the balance. Study every line entry with intense scrutiny. If anything appears suspicious, challenge it right away. Most credit card providers allow 60 days for disputing charges, but cruise companies maintain their own internal time limits that are frequently much stricter. Believe me, investing 10 minutes examining your bills now might save you hundreds later. However, credit card fees represent just the start. Wait until you discover the photo scheme that ensnares thousands of cruise passengers each month. Danger 2. Vanishing vacation photos. Introduce Jennifer, a novice cruiser who believed she discovered treasure when the ship's photographers documented her family's ideal vacation experiences. Professional images from their formal evening, spontaneous pictures from the deck celebration, even that amusing photo of her spouse attempting to flee the conga line, numerous memories that would justify every cent. Jennifer assumed she'd examine the photo collection after returning home when she had time to properly review everything. Major error. Enormous mistake. When she eventually accessed the cruise company's photo website 2 weeks afterward, she encountered a notification that made her feel sick. Images from your voyage have been deleted due to storage constraints. Here's the hidden truth cruise companies don't publicize. Your vacation photographs have a deadline, typically ranging from 30 to 90 days following your cruise conclusion. After that cutoff expires, those professional images vanish into digital nothingness, and there's absolutely nothing you can do for recovery. The cruise photography business is a multi-million-dollar enterprise that depends on spontaneous purchases and time constraints. They capture thousands of images during your voyage, then employ artificial scarcity to pressure you into purchasing packages before the photos disappear permanently. It's mental manipulation disguised as customer assistance. But what makes this even more irritating is that cruise companies often fail to clearly explain these deletion rules during boarding or in their daily announcements. You might receive a fine print reference in a contract signed months earlier, but good luck locating that information when you actually require it. Your protection plan is straightforward but time-critical. Access your cruise company's photo website within 7 days of disembarkation. Review everything they documented, save the images you desire, and make your buying choices rapidly. Don't delay for the ideal moment to examine hundreds of photographs. That moment might cost you all your vacation memories. Danger 3. Disputable gratuity charges. Speaking of deadlines you never anticipated, let's discuss a financial trap that might cost you more than lost photographs. David believed he was being thoughtful when he prepaid gratuities for his 7-day voyage. $98 automatically billed to his room for tips to housekeeping, dining personnel, and other service staff. What he didn't anticipate was service so inadequate that he actually wanted some money returned. His cabin attendants appeared exactly twice during the complete week, and the dining room service was so sluggish they missed half their dinner bookings. When David returned home and noticed that $98 charge on his final statement, he assumed it was too late for action. Incorrect. Completely incorrect. That assumption cost him nearly $100 that he could have recovered with a simple phone call if he'd understood the cruise industry's best-kept secret. Here's what cruise companies don't want you knowing. Those automatic gratuity fees aren't truly automatic whatsoever. They're recommendations that you can modify, decrease, or completely eliminate if you're dissatisfied with the service received. However, there's a limitation. You typically must dispute these fees within 30 to 60 days of your voyage. The cruise business has conditioned us to consider gratuities as required fees, similar to taxes or port expenses. They automatically include these charges on your bill and present them as non-negotiable costs. But actually, gratuities are precisely what the term implies: voluntary payments for quality service. If the service wasn't satisfactory, you shouldn't pay for it. The procedure is typically simple. Contact the cruise company's customer service division, describe the specific service problems you encountered, and request a partial or complete adjustment to your gratuity charges. Most cruise companies will accommodate reasonable requests, particularly if you can supply specific examples of inadequate service. But here's the essential part. You must act quickly. Those dispute windows shut rapidly, and once closed, you're obligated to pay for service you didn't receive. Don't allow courtesy or shame to cost you money that rightfully remains in your account. Danger 4. Travel insurance claim deadlines. The timeline is running out on more than gratuities, though. Wait until you discover the insurance deadline that might cost you thousands. Imagine this disaster. Robert's dream Mediterranean cruise became a medical crisis when he slipped on a slippery deck and fractured his ankle on day 3. The ship's medical facility treated him temporarily, but proper treatment had to wait until reaching the next port, where he spent 2 days in a Spanish hospital and accumulated $8,000 in medical expenses. Robert had been wise enough to purchase comprehensive travel insurance before his cruise, so he assumed he was protected. He'd handle the documentation when he returned home and felt improved. That relaxed approach toward filing his claim cost him every dollar of those medical bills. Here's the harsh reality about travel insurance. Owning a policy doesn't ensure coverage. Insurance companies maintain strict deadlines for claim submission. If you miss those deadlines by a single day, your policy becomes useless paper. Most travel insurance policies demand claim filing within 30 to 90 days of the incident. However, some have deadlines as brief as 20 days. Robert was unaware of this. He spent 3 weeks recovering from his injury, another week catching up at work, and finally submitted his insurance claim 45 days after his accident. His policy had a 30-day deadline. Game finished. $8,000 wasted because he missed an arbitrary deadline buried in small print. The insurance industry profits enormously from missed deadlines and incomplete documentation. They collect premiums from millions of travelers, then employ bureaucratic barriers to deny claims whenever possible. It's a system created to protect their profits, not your financial security. Your survival approach begins before leaving home. Study your travel insurance policy as if your financial future depends on it, because it does. Understand the filing deadlines, required documentation, and specific procedures for various claim types. If something goes wrong during your cruise, begin the claims process immediately. Don't wait until you feel like handling paperwork. Time is your adversary regarding insurance claims, but it's also your adversary when recovering lost luggage compensation. Danger 5. Lost luggage settlement negotiations. This leads us to our next expensive mistake. Mark's luggage never boarded his Alaska cruise. The airline promised it would meet the ship at the following port, but 7 days later, Mark was still wearing identical clothes he'd traveled in. The cruise company offered him a $50 credit toward on-board purchases, barely sufficient to purchase 2 shirts from the overpriced gift store. When Mark returned home, he submitted a claim with the airline and assumed that concluded it. 3 months later, he received a form letter stating his claim had been processed with a settlement offer of $125 for a suitcase containing $800 worth of vacation clothing, formal attire, and personal belongings. This seemed like theft. Here's what Mark didn't understand. That initial settlement offer was merely the opening proposal in a negotiation he didn't realize he was conducting. Airlines and cruise companies depend on passengers accepting minimal offers because most people don't realize they can and should resist. The lost luggage business operates on maximizing profit through minimum payments. They'll offer just enough to make you disappear, hoping you'll accept the simple money rather than document your actual losses. However, if you understand how to navigate their system, you can often recover 70 to 80% of your legitimate expenses. Your approach requires persistence and documentation. Maintain every receipt. Photograph everything you had to purchase as replacements. Keep detailed records of your communications with the airline or cruise company. Most importantly, don't accept the initial offer. Respond with a detailed breakdown of your actual losses. The persistent complainant receives attention in lost luggage claims. Companies will often significantly increase their settlement offers for passengers who demonstrate they won't quietly disappear. Danger 6. Post-cruise health monitoring. However, there's another post-cruise danger that's more serious than lost luggage. One that could impact your health. Lisa felt slightly nauseous on her final day aboard the ship, but she attributed it to excessive rich food and perhaps one too many tropical drinks. 2 days after returning home, she was severely ill with what she assumed was a stomach virus. She endured it for 3 days before finally going to urgent care where she tested positive for norovirus. By then, Lisa had unknowingly exposed her entire workplace, her family, and numerous strangers to a highly contagious illness that spread through her office like wildfire. What began as feeling slightly unwell became a public health crisis that could have been prevented with earlier medical care. Cruise ships are floating laboratories where thousands of people from worldwide share confined spaces, buffet areas, and recirculated air. Norovirus, respiratory infections, and other contagious diseases spread like rumors in middle school. Cruise companies understand this, which explains their extensive sanitization procedures. However, those procedures aren't perfect. Here's what makes post-cruise illness particularly hazardous. Symptoms often don't manifest until after you've disembarked and returned to normal life. You could be contagious for days before realizing you're sick, potentially spreading illness to everyone you meet. The responsible action is monitoring your health carefully for at least 2 weeks after your cruise. Any symptoms, fever, nausea, respiratory problems, unusual exhaustion, should be taken seriously and evaluated by a medical professional. Don't assume it's merely vacation fatigue or rich food affecting you. When you seek medical care, inform your healthcare provider that you've recently been on a cruise ship. This information helps them consider diagnoses they might not otherwise contemplate and take appropriate precautions to prevent spreading to other patients. Your health isn't only about you. It's about everyone you might expose if you're carrying something contagious. Danger 7. Customs duty violations. However, speaking of things that can cause trouble after your cruise, wait until you hear about the customs violation that could result in federal consequences. Before we proceed, a quick note. If you're finding these post-cruise dangers as revealing as I am, press that like button and subscribe so you never get caught by cruise industry tricks again. Trust me, the remaining dangers are costlier than what we've discussed so far. Tom believed he'd made excellent purchases at the ship's duty-free store, stocking up on premium alcohol, expensive fragrances, and luxury chocolates to bring home as presents. He'd spent over $600 on items that would have cost double at home, feeling quite pleased about his smart shopping abilities. His satisfaction disappeared at customs when the officer asked him to declare his purchases. Tom had exceeded his duty-free limits without realizing limits existed. His excellent deals suddenly included an additional $180 in duties and taxes, plus a lecture about customs violations that could have resulted in much steeper penalties. Here's what duty-free shops conveniently neglect to mention. Duty-free doesn't mean unlimited and free. Every country maintains specific limits on how much alcohol, tobacco, and other goods you can bring back without paying additional taxes. Exceed those limits and you're responsible for duties that can eliminate any savings you believed you were achieving. The United States permits returning citizens to bring back $800 worth of goods duty-free, but there are specific quantity limits that can catch you off guard. You can bring back 1 liter of alcohol duty-free, but that second bottle of rum exceeds the limit. 2 cigarette cartons might seem reasonable, but you're only permitted 200 cigarettes duty-free. What makes this particularly annoying is that cruise companies actively encourage purchasing more than you can legally bring home duty-free. Their sales personnel won't warn you about customs limits because they're focused on maximizing sales, not protecting you from import violations. Your defense is simple. Know your limits before shopping. Research the duty-free allowances for your home country and follow them strictly. If you're tempted to buy more, calculate whether the total cost, including duties and taxes, is still worthwhile. Remember, customs violations aren't just expensive. They can result in confiscated goods, substantial fines, and in extreme cases, criminal charges. Don't let a shopping spree become a legal disaster. Danger 8. Auto-renewal internet subscriptions. However, speaking of legal disasters, our next danger involves technology traps that continue costing you money long after you're home. Rachel needed internet access during her cruise to stay connected with work. So she enrolled in the ship's Wi-Fi package, $89 for unlimited access during her 7-day journey. What she didn't notice in the fine print was that she'd also enrolled in an automatic renewal program that would charge her credit card $89 monthly for continued access to maritime internet services. 3 months later, Rachel discovered she'd been paying $89 monthly for internet access on a cruise ship she hadn't been on since February. When she called to cancel, the customer service representative cheerfully informed her that the auto-renewal terms were clearly disclosed in the agreement she'd signed, buried in paragraph 47 of the dense legal text nobody actually reads. The cruise internet industry has discovered a goldmine in auto-renewal subscriptions. They know most passengers sign up for internet access without carefully reading the terms, and they're depending on you for getting to cancel these recurring charges when you return home. Here's what makes this particularly devious. These auto-renewals often don't provide any actual service after your cruise ends. You're paying monthly fees for access to ship-based internet that you can't use unless you're literally on that specific cruise line's vessels. It's like paying for a gym membership at a gym that only exists in international waters. Cruise companies justify these charges by claiming they provide continued access to their internet services on future cruises. However, since most people don't cruise monthly, you're essentially paying for a service you may never use again. Your protection is simple but crucial. Before disembarking, log into your cruise line's internet portal and cancel any auto-renewal subscriptions. If you can't find the cancellation option online, visit the guest services desk and have them cancel it in person before leaving the ship. Don't trust that you'll remember to cancel when you return home. Cruise companies are banking on your forgetfulness, turning it into their monthly profit. Danger 9. Social media legal issues. However, internet charges aren't the only recurring nightmare waiting for you at home. Wait until you hear about the social media trap that could result in a lawsuit. Emma thought she was being friendly when she posted numerous cruise photos on social media, including shots of crew members who provided outstanding service, candid pictures of other passengers enjoying themselves, and even some behind-the-scenes glimpses of crew areas she'd been permitted to visit during a ship tour. 6 weeks later, Emma received a cease and desist letter from the cruise line's legal department demanding she remove specific photos that violated crew privacy policies and ship security regulations. Apparently, some of her innocent vacation shots had captured restricted areas, identified crew members without their consent, and potentially compromised ship security protocols. Social media has created a legal minefield for cruise passengers who don't understand the complex privacy and security regulations governing maritime vessels. What seems like harmless vacation sharing can actually violate federal maritime laws, crew employment agreements, and passenger contract terms that you agreed to when you booked your cruise. Crew members have specific privacy rights that extend beyond the ship. Many cruise companies prohibit passengers from posting identifiable photos of crew members on social media without explicit written consent. That selfie with your favorite bartender could violate his employment agreement and endanger his job. Ship security is another major concern. Photos that show restricted areas, security equipment, or operational details could potentially be used by criminals to plan illegal activities. Maritime security agencies take these threats seriously, and they don't distinguish between innocent vacation photos and potential intelligence gathering. Your social media strategy should include a careful review of all cruise-related content before posting. Remove or blur faces of crew members and other passengers. Avoid posting photos of restricted areas. Be cautious about sharing too much detail about ship operations or security procedures. When in doubt, don't post it. The temporary satisfaction of sharing vacation photos isn't worth the potential legal headaches or privacy violations that could follow you home. Danger 10. Data breach identity theft. However, privacy violations are just the beginning. Our final danger could expose you to identity theft and financial fraud that lasts for years. Karen didn't think twice about providing her credit card information, passport details, and personal contact information when she booked her cruise. After all, she was dealing with a major cruise company with millions of satisfied customers. What could go wrong? Everything. As it turned out, 8 months after her cruise, Karen received a letter that made her blood freeze. The cruise company had suffered a massive data breach affecting over 2.3 million passengers. Her name, address, passport number, credit card information, and even her cabin preferences were now potentially in the hands of cybercriminals. The cruise industry has become a prime target for hackers because of the massive amounts of personal and financial data they collect. When you book a cruise, you're not just giving them your credit card number. You're providing passport information, emergency contacts, medical details, and travel preferences that create a complete profile criminals can use for identity theft. Here's what makes cruise company data breaches particularly dangerous. The stolen information often includes everything criminals need to open new accounts in your name. Your passport number, combined with your personal details and travel history, creates a golden ticket for sophisticated identity theft schemes. But here's the kicker. Many cruise companies don't immediately notify affected passengers when breaches occur. Karen received her notification 8 months after the breach happened, meaning criminals potentially had 8 months to use her information before she even knew it was compromised. The aftermath of a cruise company data breach can haunt you for years. Identity thieves can use your passport information to apply for credit cards, open bank accounts, or even book travel in your name. The combination of personal and financial data from cruise bookings makes these breaches particularly valuable on the dark web. Your protection strategy starts immediately after any cruise. Monitor your credit reports obsessively. Set up fraud alerts with all major credit bureaus. Consider freezing your credit if you're not actively applying for new accounts. Change passwords on all financial accounts, especially if you use the same password for your cruise booking that you use elsewhere. Don't wait for the cruise company to tell you about a data breach. They may not know about it themselves, or they may delay notification for months. Take proactive steps to protect yourself because once your identity is stolen, recovering from it can take years and cost thousands of dollars. There you have it. 10 post-cruise dangers that could cost you serious money, compromise your health, or even land you in legal trouble. The cruise industry profits when you don't know about these hidden traps. But now you're armed with the knowledge to protect yourself. Here's the bottom line. Your cruise responsibilities don't end when you walk off that ship. Stay vigilant. Act quickly on potential problems, and never assume that everything will just work out automatically. Thanks for watching. Type "smooth sailing" in the comments if you made it through all 10 dangers and tell me which one surprised you the most. If you want to avoid even more cruise industry tricks, click the video appearing on your screen right now to learn about booking scams that could ruin your next vacation before it even starts. Until next time, cruise smart and protect your wallet.